Hi, I'm back here with
Stening.
Barbara Stening, who was for 20 years was a writer for the National Enquirer. Before that, she was with
Rona Barrett.
Rona Barrett. I was gonna say your name.
I wrote and produced her television broadcast, which was a syndicated 3-minute news drop in those days. And you know, Rona, a lot of people didn't like Rona. Beside the point, she was a pioneer.
She was.
She really was.
I enjoyed her.
Yeah.
I thought she was a very attractive woman. She was just at a festival. I think I told you one time.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
And one of those. There was one going on this week. Every other weekend now they have these autograph shows.
Oh, right.
You know.
Was that what it was?
I believe it was. She was there, and I don't know if she was signing autographs or just visiting somebody. But anyway, Francine York. She was with Francine York.
Yeah. But that was a great grounding for a young reporter, you know, to make all those contacts on a daily basis and be in touch on the phone every day with all the press agents and setting things up and writing items, and then those were on television every night, and you know, you really got a sort of a mental Rolodex of everything that was happening, and if you have a great mind for trivia like I do, you remembered everything, and you remember who goes with whom, and you remember which press agent handles whom, and so after Rona went off the air at that time, that is really how I was recruited by the National Enquirer, because they were.
But you were treated as royalty too. I mean, you were.
That's true.
Somebody to be feared.
Well, at the Enquirer, you mean?
When you were Rona.
Yes, I don't know about feared, but certainly courted. Because people wanted to have those items on television.
Right.
That was about the only outlet where that was happening. And the broadcast was syndicated in, I don't know, I think about 60 different markets throughout the country, including Washington, D.C. and New York and Kansas City. And then that was through Metro Media at that time. And then a lot of independent stations picked it up too and put it in their 10 p.m. news.
Metro Media, was that Channel 5 in New York?
I think it was. Yes, I believe it was.
But she was also on ABC.
ABC later, before and after that she was on ABC, that's right.
So I do remember Channel 7, because I watched her when I was in New York.
Yes,
and,
that's true.
I always enjoyed watching her, and the other one was,
Tony Holt?
Cindy, what's her name, Cindy?
Oh, yeah.
The gossip columnist.
Cindy.
Oh, God, I met her. She's still around. Cindy Adams.
Yeah.
She was married to Joey Adams.
She's still around, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
She is, yeah.
She was married to Joey Adams, the comedian. You remember Joey Adams?
No.
Oh, he was a world famous drunk comedian.
Oh, no, I don't.
In New York, yeah, he was. I'm surprised you never. Because he was back in the days of Sinatra and all of them guys.
Really?
Joey Adams.
Joey Adams, no. I remember Pat Henry.
Joey Adams was bigger than Pat Henry.
At the same time?
Maybe before him.
Before that, yeah, that's probably why I don't.
Look at Joey Adams, yeah, because that's what, I guess, because she married him, that was how she got in, I guess, whatever.
It was a good in, I'm sure.
But I remember her, I met her many years ago when they were, what's his name, Sean Connery, the Italian American Council was throwing him an Oscar party, pre-Oscar party for the Untouchables. And I went there with Tina Louise, and she was sitting at our table. Nice, Cindy Adams. She was really interesting, and like you, she knew where all the bodies were buried.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, I mean, after I worked for the Enquirer for a while, I knew where even more bodies were buried, and some of them were at the Enquirer.
Now that's it. What was the difference in how people treated you for Rona Barrett and the Enquirer?
Oh my gosh, day and night. I remember, in fact, I expressed that in the opening chapters of this book, how, you know, I was really used to coming in the front door. Rona's secretary had a book, you know, an engagement book, and she would tuck every invitation into every page, and, you know, Rona and I would divide up these invitations and cover each event every night. So these were really first class kind of invitations. And so then when I went to the National Enquirer, I had a rude awakening, because I started to call the press agents with whom I had worked for years, you know, and I put so many of their items on television, and I said, well, gee, I'm with the Enquirer now, and all of a sudden, click!
Click.
I mean, some of them just virtually hung up on me, and it was very upsetting. It was a little bit soul destroying, you know. And I thought, gosh, how am I going to do this job if everybody is going to do this? But you know, there was always that small, hearty coterie in the middle, the real people that understood that the National Enquirer had a vast audience, and if they had somebody that they trusted, i.e. me, on the inside, they could have control of the story, and they would be able to be assured that their story would not turn out in a way that they were unhappy with. So I always had that inner core of press agents that worked with me, and managers. Some of them worked with me anonymously, and they didn't want their client to know that they were working with me, and yet at the same time they wanted the real story to be told. And so they would give me the real story, and not fluff or not avoiding me. So yes, it was a big difference trying to do a tough job, without the same kind of cooperation that we had at the Rona Barrett broadcast. But you know, there's a way to do this, and there's a way to do it gracefully, and there's a way to do it well, and there's a way to use your little noggin to find in the sideways ways of getting it done in case somebody isn't going to let you go in the front door. So that book is about a lot of those kind of hilarious
Very interesting
antics.
reading. A friend of Joyce Chow, who was on the show, she has the book, the one she borrowed the one you gave me.
Oh yes.
And I got to get in touch with her again and have you two talk.
Oh
But
yes.
now, there was a guy on TV, the Enquirer was owned by Natalia fellow.
Yes, John Russell Pope.
But now, who was the guy on TV that I always thought he was the owner when they had the television show, and he was very famous, gray hair guy.
Oh my.
When the Enquirer, he was a spokesman for what did he?
Oh, Hayden Cameron.
Was that his name?
Well, Hayden Cameron was the
And gray hair, and he was on TV.
Gosh, I don't even know who that is.
They always had him on all these talk shows when they had something to say about the Enquirer.
Oh, was this years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if
You remember?
Was it Mike Walker?
Mike Walker.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I always thought he was the owner.
Oh my God, no. Although he's
I mean, he came across that way
yeah, well,
as the owner of.
he's a gossip.
Oh, see, because he was the one that was always on television, on all the different shows.
Oh, that's right. I know
Reporting.
you said that. It's true. He was. I don't know if he's still there.
And
now.
he came across it. Well, we at the Enquirer, you know, and I always thought he was the owner too.
No, Generoso Pope Jr. was the owner.
Yeah,
He
right.
was a really brilliant man, very eccentric. He started the paper from scratch. He bought this kind of blood and guts tabloid that had a small circulation in New Jersey, and he got this idea to make it into a mainstream newspaper that could be taken home for the family to read, a kind of a celebrity rag, and uplifting stories, recipe for a happy marriage, how my son overcame polio, you know, this kind of thing. And and unusual stories, man and wife both have sex changes and reverse their roles in the marriage, you know, just unusual stories of all kinds, but mainly aimed into the celebrity reporting field. And so he got this idea to move the newspaper down to South Florida. And why? Well, I think not only the weather, which was one factor, but I think also because he gleaned that South Florida is a peninsula, and it's down at the very bottom. There's no manufacturing there. It's all based upon tourism. Consequently, everything that is sold and used in South Florida has to be trucked in. And so what happens to all those trucks with nothing to take back out? So he decided to publish and produce the National Enquirer there and fill those trucks with National Enquirers, which could then be distributed nationally. And so he got a very good deal from the Teamsters to take those newspapers all over the country in their empty trucks. And that's how it all started. And then he started to gather his team of reporters. And there were a lot of, he loved the British reporters, the Bulldog reporters, these people from Fleet Street. They really were hard-line reporters. They would get the job done. So he figured they all live in this nasty climate, you know, with all that rain and everything. And so he tempted them with high salaries and sunshine, and they came to work at the National Enquirer, and that was his kind of his inner circle of reporters. Then he added people like me who knew the celebrity scene on the West Coast. And in a couple of years, he had his whole thing all set up. And that's how the Enquirer came to be.
Did they ever do a movie about it?
No, they've never done a movie about
I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm saying, what a great movie this
would be a great movie. And Gene Pope, oh my gosh, he was the boss. And there's a whole chapter in my book, Secrets of a Tabloid Reporter, all about Gene Pope and what it was like in the Home Office in the presence of Mr. Pope. We all called him Mr. Pope. He was the first one in the morning. He was the last one home at night. He ran everything about the paper. He really was a hands-on guy, and he loved his editors. He loved his reporters, even though we reporters didn't necessarily have such intimate contact with him, but his editors did, and those were our editors, you know. Boy, he kept his eye on every single thing that was going on that paper. And when he died, oh, I think it was about 1988, and that is when the Enquirer began to change, really change, because it began to change hands.
So that's when the guys like Mike Walker and them started to become...
Rise, yeah, exactly. But, you know, big companies own it. American media still owns it. And then they began to acquire the other tabloids, too. It's how to beat the competition, buy them.
Right.
And then
the Star,
right, and the Globe.
The Globe, the Globe was more into space aliens, wasn't it?
Well, I think that...
Or was that a different...
People always ask me, oh yeah, the Enquirer, space aliens. And I said, no, that wasn't them. No. It was actually the Weekly World News.
It was something, I knew it was with a W.
That was the black and white tab, I don't know if it's still around. That was a hilarious paper. And they had a corner in the National Enquirer's home office. They had a sort of a section over on the other side. And we could hear the guffaws and laughter coming out of that corner as they sat and made up all this stuff. You know, like the alien who walks with presidents and the Cyclops baby. And
that must have been a great job.
Yeah, I mean, it was very funny. Yeah, and this was just a, what would you call it? It was a bit of fun is what it was, but there's a word I'm trying to find that describes it. It was a send-up. It was a send-up. And it wasn't supposed to be taken seriously, but I think some people did.
A lot of people took it serious.
But
I mean, if it was in print, it had to be.
That's true.
And the trouble, the Enquirer, you know, they got it right.
They got it right.
That's what really pissed people off.
Oh, I know. I think it started with was the Gary Hart, the toppling of the Gary Hart thing
With
before
the president.
Or after OJ? I think it was before.
Yeah, I think it was. You know, I think it was. I think it was before. I'm not sure, but those two things. You know.
Those
But
kind
the
of.
Enquirer is the one that broke it on OJ.
Oh my God, we really broke that story wide open, but and we got it all right, and we had sources that I remember. In fact, I think I've spoken with you about this before. I had a source that made, because the Enquirer got to these people before the police even hit the ground, pretty much. We kind of tainted the witnesses, I guess. We tainted some of the
I understand.
testimony,
yeah, right.
because we published it already. And so,
Yeah, they got paid, so.
yes, and so that's right. And but anyway, we got it right, and we were the go-to guys. I think a lot of the mainstream news media were reading the National Enquirer the minute it came off the presses to find out what they should say.
Because that's true. That's when it really became famous, that the Enquirer, you know, say what you want, but they got it right.
That's it, right. And then how about the John Edwards? We got that right.
You got that right.
When all the mainstream media was saying, oh
No,
he's
couldn't
such
be.
a good guy. He would never do something like that.
It's amazing the people that you think you know, that you respect and this and that and this and big, but me, then you find out what they're really about.
Yeah, but you know, that is really the role of journalism. That is called the fourth
Well, they're not
estate.
doing that today.
No, they don't do
Journalism
it today.
today is turned into a one-sided politically
It's
machine.
a cheering section. It's a cheering section.
That's another way of
It's
putting
not
it.
the function of
They're
journalism.
not telling you the truth. They're lying to you.
You know, when I went to
And,
J school, which was in the days when journalism was really taught, that was the first order of business. Was you are not there to put yourself in the story. Your opinions are not part of this. Whatever you think, your job as the reporter is to tell what happened.
It's true.
Tell what happened. And you do not interpose yourself. There is no I in your story.
That's not the way it is today. And when I watch it, I mean, it's acceptable to lie because they know if you say the lie long enough, people will believe it,
Of course
and they
do.
forget about it.
And you know, even the teller of the person that the lie is, you know, like the star, the person who's saying the lie, they come to believe it themselves.
They say it over and over again, and
Over and over.
this is, you know, the mentality, and they know it's.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's you know, it's funny when you talk about getting it right, the Inquirer, and I know Mr. Pope had a lot of help from certain Italians,
Oh yeah.
you know, and as you know, there's one, Albert Anastasia, they call him the Mad Hatter. He was one that started Murder Incorporated. He was killed at 57 in the barbershop.
Oh.
You know, and he ran the docks in New York and
In Little Italy?
no, and yeah, well, the docks in New York, and also the fish market and this and that. And he was my uncle Angelo. I always wondered how he was the boss. It was called the Brooklyn Bridge Freezers, which was a fish market next to Fulton, not too far from Fulton. And I always wonder how he was the boss, because he was from Palermo. Turns out that Albert Anastasia was his godfather.
Ah.
So, and I was calling one of my cousins up today. I said, you know, we come from a lot of royalty in the, because my cousin who I called, his family is from, you know, originates from the original Lucchese family.
Okay.
That family, you know, and my family, and my other relatives now from the Gambinos and the Genovese family. It's just a small world when you were talking about that, Mr. Pope and all that. Because, you know, nothing, you couldn't get to the Teamsters without going through.
Oh, right. And I know he was the godfather for Mr. Pope. Mr. Pope's godfather,
Yeah.
I think, was Frank Costello.
Frank Costello.
Yeah. And this is
Who was
documented.
Albert Anastasia's partner.
Okay, well, isn't that something? Well, you know, and all this was into, I was reading a book, I have had this book on my shelf for many years, and it's called Capone.
Okay.
And there's a whole section about Generoso Pope Jr., and it talked about Generoso Pope Sr. and how he made Frank Costello the guy, and the book was written in 1971.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so this is not just some recent...
No, and back then, they were still very powerful in this man.
Yeah.
It's just funny because Albert Anastasia, and one of the reasons Frank Costello got shot is because they whacked Albert Anastasia in a barbershop in 57. And they were, you know, they thought maybe, well, no, first what's-called was whacked. And they thought Albert would retaliate against Frank. And so they whacked him, but they wanted drugs.
Oh, they wanted... well, I believe, I might be wrong, I think you've set me straight on this before, but I believe that Mr. Pope was somehow knew the Profaci
Joe
family.
Profaci, yeah.
And this was part of his...
Which turned out to be the Colombo family afterwards.
Oh, okay.
That's and that's where the saying Italian American, African American, everything comes from Joe Colombo, who started the Italian American League back in 1968 or something like that. It was because of remember Gunsmoke and all of that, and not Gunsmoke, the Untouchables and everything. Every gangster was Italian.
Right.
So they called Guinea Gunsmoke. That's what they used to call the Untouchables.
Oh my God! Oh, that guinea.
Who sent me with that?
Sorry, folks, but
Yeah. But anyway, he started the Italian American League,
Okay.
and they did stop. They stopped using Italian names all the time. But that's where a lot of people don't realize today that when you African American or this American or whatever, Irish American, all comes from Joe Colombo, the mobster.
But aren't we just American? I mean, we could all be something American.
But they love that title. I mean,
Right.
they should know it comes from one of the Godfathers. I was there the day he was shot at Columbus Circle. I think it was 71.
Wow.
Interesting life, but
I'll say it is. Well, it was certainly an interesting life at the National Enquirer, and that's what this book is all about. And the sequel.
yeah, get this book. It's really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's on Amazon. Secrets of a Tabloid Reporter.
Secrets of a Tabloid Reporter.
Yes, and it has been a lot of fun I've had so much good fun with this book, and so I'm looking forward to more good fun with the sequel, which will be out probably by the first of the year.
That's great. We have to come, but before that, we got to get together and bring some. She has, ladies and gentlemen, tapes of some of the last.
Oh my gosh.
Now you were saying you have one of the last
I have the
Freddie Prinze.
I have the last interview with Freddie Prinze. I'm not talking about Junior. I mean the real Freddie Prinze from Chico and the Man. And I really worked hard to get this interview with Freddie, and finally he gave it to me. It wasn't more than, it was a couple months later that he was dead. And I still don't believe that was on purpose at all. But I mean, I have Liberace and Dick Clark. I have this whole box. We'll have to bring
Sit
it
down
in.
Just sit down.
We'll
and,
show it on here. The box.
or I'll come to you or whatever.
Amazing. And here the people are back with us. Their voices are there, speaking. These are the interviews that I did with them. A little bit later, the National Enquirer specified that we had to submit our tapes, our interview tapes. We didn't keep them anymore. We had to give them into the office so that our research department could verify every quote that we placed in our stories. But before that, I just kept everybody. I don't know if everybody kept their tapes, but I did. And I kept them in paper bags in the closet, Finally, I thought, oh my gosh, let me look through these. And I found these amazing, including Michael Jackson interview. So I'll bring these in.
That would be a great too to put them in on a cassette. I mean DVDs or whatever they have.
Yeah.
Different,
CD snips from each one. That's a very good idea, and they really are very interesting, and some of them quite poignant because the people are dead now, and here they are again back in the days that they were.
Well, do you own them? Because I was thinking, if you put them on DVDs, you could sell them.
Well, I'm not sure. I have to look into that. But I
I
mean,
would. You have a
to-
gold mine there.
Yeah, it's very, very. If not, it's very fascinating to listen. For me, especially to hear the questions that I asked. Some of them were kind of tough questions, and the people really
Gotta bring them in.
were forthcoming about the answers. And
Get in touch and tell her to bring them in.
yeah.
So we can have this, Barbara. We have to have that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. It would be fun to do too. I promise.
Yeah, it would be.
I will
Listen
sort
to
through
it
those.
and reminisce about what it was like.
Yeah, we can play a snippet and then we can talk about the actual interview and how the person was.
Right.
That would be fun. But, so I guess my work is cut out for me, huh, John?
Good
I gotta
work.
finish up the sequel to this
Well.
book and then gotta get those tapes rolling, so to speak.
I hope anything to keep you on my show, because I really enjoyed having you on and seeing you too.
Well, it's so much fun.
It's just amazing.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, my lovely.
Thank you, John.
All right, listen. 818-453-0069 if you'd like to come on. I didn't pick that number. Have a good one, folks.